So no course on this particular subject would be complete without this game, one of my most famous games, the sixth game from the World Championship against Nepomniachtchi in 2021, which featured a very, very long grind, mutual mistakes, and just rich chess content in general. It was played over 2 days finally, and we won't delve too deeply into it because a lot of people have seen me talk about this game and others talk about it a lot, but we'll just talk about a few key moments.
Yeah, and I've got to say, Magnus, I was commentating on the game. I think we were going live for 8-9 hours, but that's a fraction of the emotion that you must have been feeling. Yeah, it was such a fascinating game to watch, and I guess we'll go from the start. Some interesting moments already. We'll whiz through a bit later, but opening choice, I wanted to ask, was this with a long game in mind? Did you intend to maybe take the battle away from the opening?
Yeah, so openings in World Championships are difficult because your opponents have generally prepared for everything. So this was kind of giving him a pretty wide choice of lines in order to play like a small idea in a sideline in his main repertoire. So obviously here there are many ways for black to play, and objectively white is usually not better. But after he'd shown his intentions in the Catalan, I thought it made sense to try something a bit different. And the point was here, obviously not to play c4, since I could get that from a normal Catalan, but to play something else, and in this case it was b3. And the main idea was to go knight d2, and this way sack a pawn. So he can take the pawn, but he can also play in a bunch of other ways. And here, unfortunately, I was not well enough prepared. I didn't really remember the lines. Like white's supposed to go for bishop g5 here, sack a piece. It's a draw, but it's for somebody who's not prepared this as black, which I don't think he had, considering that he had already spent a lot of time. And frankly, like if he's even so well prepared here, then kudos. Anyway, after a while we got a long game here. He took with the pawn, which was widely discussed. I think he didn't want to end up in the famous Anderson Catalan ending.
Ulf Anderson's won this made a career on this type of position with white.
Really, there isn't much danger, but I can understand it. Like king f1, I'm going knight d2 next, trying to exchange the bishops, and I'm not better, but crucially, I'm not worse either. And
maybe we can show a position after knight d4 or something.
Yeah, for instance, knight d4, knight d4 is actually perfectly okay. Probably I'll take it. Then rook b1, and I don't have much really, but I can try a little bit, maybe a4 later, try and induce a reaction that way.
White's knight is stable.
White knight is stable on d3. Would love to have the c file, of course, or even both rooks exchanged, but that's not necessarily going to happen. Like if both rooks are exchanged, then I have two ideas for white with the king. One is to run to the king side, but the more obvious one is just to go and grab this pawn.
Yeah, black does have some weaknesses.
Yeah.
And anyone interested in those games, go up. Those types of positions, go and check out the games of famous grinder.
Yeah, he would play a bunch of these games, like the most innocuous Catalan lines with queen a4 check, take the pawn on c4, and he would just aim for these endings,
and he'd win them quite often. That's surprising.
That is true. Black has many ways, even here in this endgame, to be fine. It's not that, and yeah, this position has been discussed widely, so I will not particularly go into it.
Yeah, it's a stylistic thing, though. I mean, keeping the queens on, more dynamic.
Probably he felt at this point that he'd equalized from the opening, and there was no particular reason to go for this. Anyway, the game proceeds pretty normally until he went for rook c8, which I thought was unnecessary. I thought with the rooks, I'm never in any danger, since I can always kind of find fortresses with, even if things go a little bit wrong. And I didn't feel there was too much danger here. There are some examples of black losing these positions with all the rooks exchanged, but he's active on the queen side here. He can go a4 at some point.
Takes your a3 pawn on the dark square.
He's just not worse here, really. But you can understand the feeling that white has a little bit more potential, maybe.
Mm-hmm. In this type of position, if he doesn't go for this this kind of controversial exchange.
Yeah. Anyway, he went for this. Queen d5, that was the point, to force b4 and a4. And now we'll go e3. And, indeed, he could have gone for bishop b2 here.
So you had spotted this?
I was not so worried about that. Mm-hmm. Since I thought,
And you did that?
I thought my rooks would not have to go completely passive. Mm-hmm. Don't remember the exact reason for that. But there were lines I think this. I believe a3, I go here, rook a1, and if check this. And he cannot, I cannot just stand here because my opponent's gonna run, and he's gonna have to take it at some point. And then we get this dreaded ending. I'm sure those who followed World Championship chess for a long time remember the game of Kramnik against Leko, where he won 3 against 3 with 2 rooks against the queen, and that was a much worse version for Kramnik than what I had here. So here I think it's a draw, but you have to really, really worry about the rooks getting to the 7th. If the rooks get to the 7th without perpetuals happening, then it's over.
Yeah, so if you can get this black a pawn, I mean, this is what you had in mind earlier. You mentioned no risk for you, right?
Yeah.
You're the one.
It's not really also relevant whether it's a draw or not. Mm-hmm. The point is that there are practical difficulties. So we play here anyway. I thought h4. I thought this was nice because my intention was, for instance, if I go rook here, there is this one, I believe.
Okay, if you take this.
And if I take the bishop, I kind of need the heir for the king here. For instance, here you can start giving checks, and I can't really run away. King f1, there's queen c4.
Yeah. Okay, so
and also if I try going to the 7th rank, there's the same problem. So I went for h4. Now the point is, if queen b3, I'll take, and then I'll go rook c7. He takes rook d7, and I haven't checked this after the game, frankly. I don't really care too much. The point was just that I thought there was no risk.
Yeah, minimum you'll have a perpetual check. And I remember you were a bit low on time already at this point. And how much were you calculating? And I mean, was it just pure calculation at this point? Lines like this.
No, I was calculating. I was a bit low on time. He was a bit low on time as well. I was trying to calculate, but I was also trying to play on feeling a bit. I remember, at this point in the match, I wasn't playing so well practically. I felt also in the second game that I wasn't, so I hadn't really gotten into the match yet, I felt.
Yeah, he was playing pretty well, right? He was seeing stuff. He was.
Yeah, he was.
Not blundering at all.
No. So king h2, bishop b2. Now I could still have gone for rook
rook b2. But I remember that I was pretty happy about this sequence, since I thought I was liquidating quite a bit here, and I just completely missed the move queen d7. I could still remember like the shivers going down my spine when I realized that he had this move. So my plan was basically to go either rook a5 or to rook c5.
Bring it around.
And then bring it around. Maybe even here he had e5, which I think I also kind of didn't. Oh no, here e5, I have rook a5, and then I'm in time to capture. So this I'd actually seen, but yeah, queen d7, that was a nasty surprise. So I was kind of forced to do this. Should be mentioned that yeah, rook c2 does win, as everybody probably knows by now.
This is extreme.
Yeah, I didn't consider this at all. This didn't feel safe. I was still, trying to reach this safe 4 against 4 on the king side position, which I thought I could reach. Mind you, like, I didn't think that I needed drastic measures. I thought I could reach 4 against 4 on the king side with decent winning chances. So I wasn't really looking for these forced lines yet. And frankly, it isn't my style, but if I had been more desperate, I would have found it and
Found a way to transform it into...
Yeah, I would have probably won the game that way. Anyway, yeah, queen d7 was unpleasant.
Yeah, I guess you can't keep coordination, that's the problem.
Yeah, exactly. Rook a5 runs into bishop b4, and I can't even get exact the exchange and get 4 against 4 on the
Takes h5 is not worth considering, the rook gets shut out.
Yeah, I would guess so. e5. I didn't really consider that.
Yeah, that's...
Looks like your game against Nils.
Yeah, pawns are not worth it.
No. Okay, anyway, I went rook c5. Once I saw this, I calmed down a little bit. Again, I thought after bishop b4, rook c1 with knight f4, I would have at least some counterplay, and I figured worst case I can block the pawns, and it will be hard for him to win. So he went e5, which was again a bit of a nasty surprise. So I went rook c2.
Yeah, so hoping to meet e4 with...
Yeah, probably knight b2.
Knight b2, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. And here, again, this has once again been mentioned a lot of times. Bishop b4 was a very strong move, but this is only very strong because of rook c1 and queen g4. Otherwise, black would not be better.
Yeah, otherwise the a-pawn is not really going anywhere.
No.
Or you win the e-pawn.
Yeah, exactly.
And knight takes e5 is a threat, knight takes b4 is a threat.
Yeah. So this has been discussed a lot, and like queen d5, this move has been called all sorts of bad things. But I really believe that this was not easy. I don't necessarily believe that queen d5 was a good choice because my reply is fairly easy. But to talk about bishop b4 as an obvious win or anything is very tough.
Yeah, I must admit, when I was commentating on this, okay, obviously bishop takes b4 is the first move that comes to mind, and the computer said, okay, black's doing well, but I couldn't see the follow-up either.
No.
I mean, queen g4, you mentioned this line, is so
it's so computerish, with
switching the focus of the game, playing on the other flank. Where
I mean, you have to play this move bishop a3, which you kind of would look at, but then I guess you would probably reject it because of lines like queen e7, rook a2 or rook d2. I win the a-pawn.
It looks like rook a1, the inclusion helps white.
Yeah, it really does. But exactly, yeah. Queen g4 is a very nice piece of computer geometry, and then
white's pieces can't get coordinated. And
yeah,
I mean, I think it's too harsh to criticize either side's moves, and it's just so complex. And you both, I mean,
I think there were also options with bishop d6 maybe, and then knight c5, queen f5. I don't remember completely, but then
difficult stuff.
Yeah, it was very difficult stuff.
So this isn't the grading phase. This is just where it's calculation. There are some resources.
No, I mean, really, I was upset about missing Queen D7, and with little time, I was very nervous. But I never felt that I was like in serious danger here. Although you can never really be sure.
And that's the thing. Even if computers say +2 for black, it's fortresses. They're everywhere, right? And maybe white has some good practical. I mean, especially with a knight, good practical chances, even in those lines.
So, okay, we get Queen D5, which is a mistake, E4, which is, I guess, also a mistake, but at this point it wasn't easy. You could still go Bishop B4 here, but I'm going to trade, and I'm going to tell him good luck.
Yeah, Rook D to A3 coming next, and the black A pawn falling. I would hate to defend that against anyone.
It's really tough.
Yeah, and I mean, this was just before move 40. I think E4, whether it's a mistake objectively or not, is less relevant, but it's committal, right? Could he just sit, maybe? Is Knight C5 a threat?
I think Knight C5, if not a threat, then it is at least an option.
Yeah, so for example, if black just waits with his king,
and then I could take on A4.
Yeah, maybe we could show that Knight takes A4, Queen A4,
D3. Yeah, I guess I was somehow worried about this. But then I guess Rook C2
or not B. Knight B6, Bishop C1.
Bishop C1, yeah.
Oof. All these attacks, tricks.
Here, I guess this still isn't. Oh, now I have this little trick.
The grinder's dream.
Yeah, at this point it was. Again, I don't remember all the lines. I haven't checked this too much, but it's not too relevant in a sense. Anyway, E4. I feel like this was my only real weak moment of the game. Because here, as I mentioned before, I had half a minute, and I didn't use, I think I had more than half a minute, and I didn't use all my time. Because I saw Knight E4 was safe, I just went for it. And I should have spent some time here just to realize Rook C2. His pawn is dreadful on E4 now. I'm going to take A4 next. We're going to get 4 against 3, where he's already weakened his king side quite a bit. And if I'm not mistaken, the computer just says that white is just winning here. So this was this could have been a very expensive lesson for me. When on your 40th move, if you're in doubt, just spend your time. You have that time. You're getting most time controls anyway. You're getting more time. Just spend it.
Even if it's a 10-second kind of pause to double check. I mean, that could be so useful. But I mean, also, it's a typical kind of error that I make. I mean, partly because of time trouble, but also as a grinder. I mean, mentioned you saw Knight takes C4 safe, all risk removed.
Yeah.
But sometimes there are better options, and no need to rush.
Yeah, that is true. So anyway, I went for Knight E4. He went Queen B3. I went away, went to the bathroom, had a little snack, and I realized that even though I was happy to reach a time control with no risk, there probably wouldn't be much for me to hope for either. So here I just started moving around quite a bit.
But you clearly did you have micro plans here? Because it felt like you were...
Yeah, I had some micro plans, like I might want to bring the knight to C2, but then there wasn't really too much to hope for, really.
It felt like you had purpose behind nearly every move when I was watching.
Maybe a little bit. I didn't really feel it. Anyway, King H2, Queen E4. Here, he makes an interesting decision. It's not a very bad decision.
Is it impractical, do you feel?
But it is, it is impractical. Because not only does he allow the transformation, he forces it.
Yeah.
Because King G1 can be met by Bishop takes G3. And here, unfortunately, there are no winning chances.
Yeah, the white king is just too open. And
yeah.
Do you think if he were more of a grinder, Nepo, I mean, he can grind, of course, but if he were more of a grinder by nature, do you think he would have just sat and done nothing?
Yeah, probably. I think Queen E4 was a bit impulsive. he's extremely good at spotting these little tactical tricks, and so we just saw it, and
It is tempting for black.
it is tempting. I think also he probably had some hopes of queen e4 and then bishop g3 working, but it really, it really doesn't completely work. White's pieces are eventually gonna coordinate.
And another question, Magnus. So after rook takes a3, how would you evaluate the winning chances after just bishop takes a3? So rather than taking this h4 pawn.
No, truth be told, I don't know, and I didn't care. It was useful transformation for me.
Yeah.
And
Again, no risk.
no risk.
Stability.
It's not, but I mean, looking at the game, looking at the position then, I looked at it a bit. I think it wasn't super easy for him to defend, at least. Like, I do have some plans. Yeah, bringing the rook to f4, then bringing the knight to f5, then e4, knight e3, knight d5. That is a plan, aiming to grab f6. Also, I could try and bring the rook to the second rank, then the knight to f4.
So lots of different micro plans again.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not easy for black to defend here.
Definitely feels like you can probe a couple of weaknesses, and
Yeah.
if you win h5, if you win f6, f7, as we mentioned in other chapters, small progress.
No, so I think he made the right decision. So here, rook a4. This sack still doesn't work because of knight e2. Maybe others as well, but this is the simplest by
Keep
far.
at least one pawn alive.
Yeah. So he goes bishop e5, again making it difficult for me to coordinate by attacking my rook on a1. So I go knight e2, queen b3, again keeping his queen close to my rook, making it hard for me to coordinate, and here he gives a check. And f3, this point was a bit of a surprising choice to many, I think. The problem for me is that I didn't really find a proper way to consolidate. So if I go king g1, he goes queen d1. So king h2, there is king g7, and he's threatening h4.
You had to get your king out of the way so that h4, rook takes h4 is mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. And I seem to remember that there was a way for white here, shown by the computer, to kind of consolidate. Keep in mind that here, if I get to ever play knight f4, if I get to ever play knight f4 and take back the rook, that would be huge for me. I'm probably just winning. But I can't really do that. He's always kind of attacking my rooks. And apparently
The rook has no safe square.
yeah, and apparently there was a way for white, but I can't remember what it was, and it certainly wasn't easy. So I decided just to make a practical decision here and go f3, which is not ideal since I'm weakening my king, but I thought it was the best way to play, practically speaking. And here I go f4 as well. Still struggling a bit with coordination, but here I think he also made a practical mistake by allowing my queen to swing over. I think he should have kept the queen on d3. And then, crucially, not bishop takes e3 because of king f3, but let's say queen e4, and just making it a bit more difficult for me to coordinate my rooks.
Keeping at least one piece passive, yeah, makes a lot of sense. And I mean, were you worried after all these pawn pushes about your king safety, or I guess
Yeah, a little bit, but then again, it's hard to imagine me losing ever. So
I guess a slightly more calculation now required, at least compared to 10 moves ago.
So here, there were a lot of moves back and forth here. I was making progress, but then he found this last line of defense. Here, all the way from the start, I thought, this is it, finally. I've managed to attack f5 twice, but then, yeah, he has the little trick.
Tactics.
Yeah. So, but I decided here there wasn't anything to do, so I just had to decided to go for it.
So it wasn't that you weighed up your chances in the position we'll see shortly, and evaluated them as better than your chances here. It was just you couldn't see any other.
Yeah, I just couldn't see any other way.
Progress.
And at least it would give him some fresh problems, and it would make it a bit easier for me. Because here I constantly had to calculate these little ideas for him, and here he has fewer pieces.
So this transformation by necessity, but also just to ease your play.
So here again, there's a phase. He could have run with the king to h3, but it's hard to embark on such a journey when you're not sure. And either way, I'm not risking anything. So I was not.
At this point, he's been under pressure for 40 moves or so. It's difficult to switch mindsets.
I was not particularly worried about that.
Are you surprised he didn't spend at least a few minutes longer? I think he had a bit of time here.
I don't think he had too much, though. I think he made a decent choice here. And in general, he did well, like, always giving me these difficult choices on when to try and break through. Here I also had to look out for threefold repetitions a lot of times. Here I did a useful thing, moving the rook to the d file so I could try the same things again, but I never really found a good way to push e4. Anyway, here I finally went for e4, but now his queen comes around, and he managed to exchange a pair of pawns, which is quite useful, especially in this version that we have now where my pieces are pretty passive. So here I kind of envisioned that the only good plan for me was to put the knight on g3 and then try to hide the king on the king side. Spend a lot of time trying to get there, and he could have prevented it. Like king f8 I think was okay. Rook f3 was basically to probably
free up your knight, maybe.
Yeah, free up my knight. And here he made a crucial mistake with queen a5. First of all, he allows me to get to the short side with the king, which is where I wanted, where it's kind of more difficult for him to check it. And secondly, I think he should have just gone queen here and then pinned my knight this way. The knight is nicely centralized, but then you can, for instance, do this and start checking me.
Okay, and were you even thinking about your chances here? How did you estimate them, or were you just?
No, I didn't think I didn't think I had too many chances, but I thought I'd take it step by step. Yeah. But here, yeah, after this, I was a little bit more optimistic, especially now. I thought I'd consolidated. I have a bit of a plan.
It's really interesting conceptually, actually, just thinking you want to be on the short side because your opponent can only check you from one angle. I mean, I'd never even thought of that actually in queen endgames. Often you just know where you push. But
here we also see the difference from my game against Giri, that the knight is a lot better. I mean, my king is actually more exposed than it was in that game, but my knight is a lot better at protecting the king than the bishop was.
The balance is when you're facing a queen, rook and knight often, maybe defensively at least better than rook and bishop. Interesting, yeah.
So he goes around. Here he makes a bunch of small inaccuracies, allowing me to get the best setup that I can get. I remember, like, when I went rook d2, now I was really optimistic. I thought there were serious winning chances now. Maybe most of all because here I'm giving him checks, and I'm giving him a very difficult choice here, whether he wants to keep the king on the king side or to run away. And frankly, none of them are very pleasant. Like, if he goes to the king side, the king is cut off from the e file, and if he runs the other way, then the king is kind of also cut off, since I can go around with the king. And as far as I can remember, both of them draw.
Well, the path must be narrow.
The path must be narrow. So he gives a check, king h3, and here he famously makes the decisive mistake. He needed to keep the queen down here to b1 or c2, I think, in order to give checks from behind, which is very logical, actually.
But at this moment in the heat of battle, you've been going 7.5 hours. I mean,
it's very hard.
Yeah, he's going move by move as well, so sometimes it's hard to take a step back and think, oh, let's go behind.
But most of all, I think queen e6 is just an illogical move because you want the queen to have as much space as possible. But I think at this point, he was probably collapsing a bit. And for me, like, I had my good moments, I had my weak moments, but I was super, super focused at this point. That I felt this was my chance, and if I had a chance, I wasn't going to let it slip. And I actually, I would say, from here on, I was calculating really well, and the fact that I played for 7 hours, I could not feel that at all, because I was just...
You're only just warming up?
Yeah, I was just laser focused, and I knew this was the grind, this was the chance that I had. Anyway, now, after this, he could still make it a little bit difficult for me by going with the queen to the other side, but now my king is far advanced enough. And this has been showed by many others, so I'm not going to go into it.
It's not just momentum now, right? It's actually concrete progress.
There's concrete progress, and here again, it's also made me very happy. This next sequence, e6.
Nice tactics.
E6 is fairly simple tactic.
It's the next one.
Based on, king e7, rook f7, also rook f6 wins there, I think.
Queen
Queen f5, queen. But this is a really nice one. Other ways to win again, but this was just very clean. Boxing his king in and making sure that I have a path.
And maybe we can show the pawn endgame there after rook f7.
Rook f7, obviously I double-checked. I've never double-checked a pawn ending as many times in my life, but this is indeed...
White is the key opposition.
And which I think everybody who will watch this course probably knows.
If not, go study those pawn endgames.
Yeah, true. But, remain tactically vigilant in such positions. There are other ways to win, but if you see these things at the end of these long games, it's going to make life a lot easier for you.
I think that's important, right? It's often a relief when players, if they see something direct, they rush into it. But you have to double check, because if you miscalculate that king endgame by one tempo, it's going to be a draw. So.
Anyway, so there were a lot of these moves were all very, very satisfying. And to be honest, none more than the last move. Here again, there could be concrete ways to win. That didn't interest me at all. I just wanted something that won 100%.
Control the grinder.
Yeah, exactly. So this queen goes down, and here, if I had 10 minutes, I would probably spend most of them just enjoying the final position, because to me, this is like a perfect picture of coordination with a few pieces, because the rook, the knight, the pawns, they all defend each other. And my king, frankly, is not even needed. My king just needs to hide. And by this move, I prepared the path for the king. It's going to run all the way to g8. And at this point, I was tired. I was relieved, but most of all, I was just so satisfied to end the game in this way. And this is, I feel like this game, to some extent, is just the ultimate stream of a chess grinder, and that is why we're gonna finish off the course in this way with this particular picture of harmony. So thank you very much.
Yeah, fitting end.